In this video, I'm going to show you how to get Atari Lynx games up and running on the PS2 version of Retroarch. The Atari Lynx is a perfect candidate for emulation on the PS2 system. It's a handheld that doesn't require much power to emulate, and there's just a number of really fun games that you can play on it. That being said, it does require a little bit of extra work compared to some of the other emulators we've covered in this PS2 Retroarch tutorial series, as you will need a way to get an Atari Lynx BIOS file as well as the games. But once you have those, setup isn't too bad, so let's go ahead and dive in. So the first thing you're going to need to get started with Atari Lynx emulation on the PS2 version of Retroarch is to install the PS2 version of Retroarch, so refer back to my video on how to do that before diving into this one, and make sure that you have run Retroarch at least once on the system. But once you've done this, you could take your USB thumb drive out of your PS2 and put it back into your computer. And make sure that you get it opened up if it doesn't automatically pop up. Now, like I was saying, there are a couple things that we need to do Atari Lynx emulation, and the first of which is Atari Lynx games. If you have a physical collection of Atari Lynx games, there are hardware dumpers out there to dump them. Or, you could always resort to the shady parts of the net. I really don't care which way you do it. But once you have them, you need to add them to the USB drive. Now, in my tutorial series, I made a folder named Retroarch ROMs, and that's just where I'm putting all of the games that I use for emulation. So I'm just going to add my Atari Lynx games to that. And then the next thing we need is a BIOS file for the Lynx, and this one is a bit trickier to get. To get it through your actual physical Atari Lynx is quite a complicated process, but it can be done. There are guides out there to show you how to do it. Or again, you can resort to the shady parts of the net. Again, I don't care which way you do it, but no download links or anything like that will be provided, as sharing this type of material is illegal, so just don't ask. Requests will be deleted. But once you have it sourced, it does need to be named lynxboot.img. So just as you see here, lynxboot.img. And this file needs to go into our Retroarch system menu. So for the PS2 version of Retroarch, there was a Retroarch folder that we originally put onto our USB drive. And inside of this is another Retroarch folder, slightly redundant, but whatever. And in here is a system folder, and this is where we need to put our BIOS files. So we can open that up and drag our Lynx boot image right in. And once you have these files placed, you can go ahead and close out of everything on the PC and move your USB drive back over to the PS2 and get it booted up. Now again, just as a quick reminder, this guide is a continuation of my original PS2 Retroarch install video, so again, refer back to that video if you need to get Retroarch installed on your PS2, as well as a nice way to add in a Retroarch launcher from your free MC Boot HD Boot menu here. But anyways, now that that's out of the way, let's go ahead and boot into Retroarch. And now that Retroarch is loaded, we're free to begin loading up Atari Lynx content. So to do this, one method is to go to Load Content, scroll down to Mass, this is your USB thumbstick, find the directory you placed your Lynx games in, and then just select a game. I personally don't care for this method as it's a little bit slow, so what I like to do instead is, back on the main menu, there is a Playlists tab. Go in here, click on Import Content, and we're going to do a manual scan. And now we're going to select our Atari Lynx content directory again. So again, mine's in Retroarch ROMs, Atari Lynx, scan this directory. For system name, make sure it's set to content directory, and make sure you name that folder something you want it to display as, because it chooses the folder name to make the playlist name. So there you go. Default core, we are going to choose Atari Lynx Beetle Lynx. Make sure scan recursively is on if you have your games separated into subfolders. And for the PS2 version of Retroarch, I once again recommend having all of your games unzipped. Just seems to make the whole process a lot smoother. So just make sure they're unzipped when you put them on your USB drive. And once you have all those options set, you can go ahead and start the scan. And once the scan is finished, you will now have a new Atari Lynx playlist entry here that you can select, and then you can choose a game and tell it to run. And here we go, Atari Lynx games up and running on the PS2 version of Retroarch. This is... I just never get tired of this. It's so fun. So for those of you looking to get Atari Lynx games up and running on your PS2, that's really the entire process. Not a whole lot to it once you have those files that you need. But let's go ahead and talk about some of the core options available to us within Beetle Lynx. There's not a whole lot here, so it won't take too long. Holding down the start button on your PS2 controller for 2 seconds is going to bring us to the Retroarch quick menu, and from here, scroll down to Options. Our first option is to auto-rotate the screen. The Atari Lynx had a number of different configurations you could play games in, including vertical or upside down, kinda. Like, that's the only way I know how to describe it. You can flip the system completely over. Like, it's such a crazy handheld. So with the option on auto, it's going to set the screen up the way that it thinks the game needs it to be. You can manually set this with certain degrees of rotation here, or you can have it set to manual, so this way every time you press the select button, it will rotate the screen for you. I haven't had any issues with auto, but again, I don't have the most Atari Lynx games, so you can set that option here. And our last option is color formats, so we have 16-bit or 32-bit color. Unfortunately, the 32-bit color palette option seems to mess up the colors, so you will need to leave this one on 16-bit. And that's going to cover it as far as core options are concerned. So if there's a game that you need to have rotated one way and auto doesn't set it right, you can manually set it and save that as a game override. Otherwise, if the options are good for the majority of your games, you can also save these as a core override, so that way every time you load up an Atari Lynx game, these are the options that will greet you. But that's going to do it for this one. Really, again, not a whole lot to do here once you get initial setup done with the BIOS file. As always, if you happen to have any questions, please feel free to ask me in the comments section below, and I'll do my best to try to help you out. But now if you could all do me a huge favor, and please be sure to hit that like or dislike button, just depending on how much you like today's tutorial. And if you haven't done so already, please be sure to hit that sub button so you can see when new videos go live on the channel, including tutorials, reviews, or other random nonsense. Really goes a long way to helping the place out and helping us hit our goals, and we're just so grateful to all of you for that. Like, we're getting one step closer every day, and that's all because of everyone who watches. Thank you all so much. If you'd like to further help support the channel, you could also check out that join button here on YouTube or the Patreon link in the bottom right hand corner of the screen. A little really does go a long way to keeping this place up and running, and we are just so grateful to all of our champions, new and old, who have been with us along this journey. Just thank you all so much, you friggin' rock stars, you. But until next time, my wonderful internet peeps, stay awesome, and we will see you all back next video.